Hello, I'm Jessica Martin, and I work on designing courses for the ACS Center for Lab Safety. And today I'm going to walk you through one of our courses designed to support instructors teaching introductory chemistry courses. ACS Essentials of Lab Safety for General Chemistry is an interactive introduction to working safely within a lab environment. So when students enter the course, you'll notice a few navigation aids, including a top bar up here where students can customize accessibility features, look up keywords in the glossary, or take a deeper dive into additional content under resources. Accessibility features like closed captioning and screen reading can be helpful for many different types of students, making for a more inclusive learning environment. Now, the basis of this course is the RAMP model, developed over time by the dedicated expert membership of the American Chemical Society. RAMP is an approach to considering lab safety from a risk-based perspective. RAMP stands for recognize hazards, assess the risks of those hazards, minimize the risks, and prepare for emergencies. Learners are introduced to the basics of risk-based thinking throughout the lessons of this course. They begin to learn how to recognize hazards through an introduction to GHS pictograms, container labels, and safety data sheets. I will show you some examples of this here. Now, to introduce learners to the 9 GHS pictograms, we split them into groups of 3 and have learners examine the pictograms and the lists of hazards they represent and reason through matching them to one another before we present a short lecture on them. So as you can see here, this is an example of a click and drop activity within the course. So they can go ahead and take a crack at this and see if they're right. If they're not, they're going to be encouraged to try again until they're able to match the 3. Each of these questions also comes with a little hint as well that they can go ahead and tap and take a look at to get a little bit of assistance to think about the question. And then once they get it correct, they see this and they move on to the next slide. Now, this activity is meant to get learners to look closely at the pictograms themselves, as well as gain an appreciation for the many hazards each of these pictograms represents. Later in this lesson, we introduce them to the labels on primary chemical containers. So not only do they get exposure to the pictograms again, but they also get exposure to signal words, hazard statements, and precautionary statements that are typically found on these labels. This gives them an appreciation for the fact that they're going to get a lot of the same information in multiple ways. Finally, we bring these two ideas together by having them identify GHS pictograms on containers of chemicals they will likely have heard of before. Here, we are using a bottle of ethanol. In this way, we aim to encourage them to start associating the lists of hazards of which to be aware when handling these common chemicals. So as you can see, learners will be asked to reason through issues and interact, not simply observe. This helps prime them for learning and keeps them engaged, as you can be confident that they will enter your lab on day 1 with a common understanding of safety expectations. They are introduced to the concept of assessing the risks of hazards through exercises that are accessible to beginners. In this set of exercises here, learners are prompted through a series of questions to consider a hazard, the hot plate, and the risk posed by the hazard, burning themselves on something heated by it. By leading them through the series of questions, the learner constructs a very basic risk matrix in which they consider the probability of the occurrence of the risk as well as the severity of the outcome of the risk in order to decide whether or not something is actually high risk or whether it's low risk. They are then prompted through interactivities and videos to explore the best practices to minimize risks in a lab. I will show you some of these examples here. So in this interactivity, learners examine the outfits of students preparing to come to lab and explore what may need to change so that their clothes help to minimize risks they may face in the lab. After they go through this click and reveal activity, they can then flip the images to change the outfits. We also have a note that encourages learners to check the rules for lab attire at their own institutions, as these may vary based on identified risks. Learners are also prompted to examine a cluttered lab bench to determine what stays and what must go. They then get to clear that lab bench of the unnecessary items by clicking to the next page. We have also included videos that emphasize important ways to minimize hazards. So in this video here, they're introduced to selecting appropriately sized nitrile gloves. The purpose here is to not only introduce them to PPE, but also to sensitize them to the fact that PPE cannot minimize risks if it does not fit appropriately. Finally, they consider ways to respond to an emergency. which includes imagery and videos that expose them to the use of common emergency equipment in a setting similar to what they will encounter rather than something that is dated or relies on illustration, making the content more relatable. So as an example of this, here we have included a video of a person explaining the proper use of a safety shower. Now, it is not common for students to get to see a safety shower in operation before they themselves need to use one in an emergency. This gives them a chance to see how it operates and what to expect when they initiate one. Now, as you can see from all these examples I just showed you, the entire course is littered with different types of questions and interactivities that are designed to prompt inquiry and engagement. So the content is organized into 5 lessons that take the learner through the topics of academic success and safety, the RAMP framework, communication in the lab, best practices used to minimize risks, and the means of preparing for lab emergencies. The course concludes with a situation-based assessment called A Day in the Lab, in which the learner receives instant feedback after each question to reinforce the concepts covered in the course. Now, throughout the first 5 lessons, inquiry-based questions are not graded. However, the situation-based assessment at the end is graded. Now, the whole course, including the assessment, takes about 90 minutes to complete. It can be done in one sitting or in several. Now, I have a PhD in chemistry myself, as well as experience teaching, and I've been well mentored by the amazing communities of the ACS Division of Chemical Health and Safety in SHEMA. Upon joining ACS Publications as a product manager focused on lab safety, I found myself very fortunate to be working with the team brought together to design this course. It included professors facing the challenges of instruction in undergraduate chemistry labs, experienced laboratory safety professionals working in academic institutions, and research professors who have worked to improve safety in academic research labs. As I worked with these outstanding professionals, we engaged in spirited debate to decide what to cover and how to deliver complex topics. And we always kept our goal in view: to create an introductory course that was comprehensive and authoritative, and also engaging for the beginning learner. Additionally, by introducing the concept of RAMP to learners from the start, instructors can build on these concepts using other ACS resources. In fact, a short list of these resources can be found at the resources button at the top that will already have been shared with your students. Also, to help save you time and ensure accountability, we have built this course to integrate with your learning management system. Our team will be here to help your LMS administrator set up the course and handle any questions or concerns along the way. Finally, our team welcomes your feedback on this course. This is not a one and done product. As we gather feedback, we will identify ways to improve the course over time, keeping you and your students up to date and ready to work in labs safely.